Now we're going to move on to session 3. So where is IMTA in the Atlantic area heading?
So the first presentation of this last session will be given by Lars Brunner from SAMS in Scotland.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Lars Brunner. I work at SAMS up in Scotland in the United Kingdom. And as part of Integrate, we have been working as work package leaders for work package 3, which is capitalization. So obviously the first question that probably arises is the definition of what is capitalization. The aim of work package 3, and taken directly from the project documents there, is to transfer IMTA experience and best practice into a series of events and learning materials that will take the project knowledge and disseminate it to interested stakeholders, be they students, industry partners or academia. Obviously, we do this in a variety of ways. There's 5 separate sub-packages within work package 3, and just running through them briefly. The first one is developing an IMTA community online, and it's the idea that we're looking at the creation of online social networking opportunities, bringing people interested in IMTA together in a professionals network where information can be shared. Sub-package 2 looked at training activities, and we were very keen to develop freely accessible teaching materials. And these could be in a variety of formats, utilising both the knowledge ourselves that we had at SAMS and also that all the various partners had across the project as well. Sub-package 3 and 4 are kind of interrelated. Sub-package 3 looked at the idea of professionals knowledge transfer. This is the idea of thematic workshops within each partner country, setting up an opportunity for professionals, industry professionals, academics, students, people interested in this could come together and discuss how the zero waste concept within IMTA could be adapted, eco-efficient technology could be adapted and used within the industry. So that kind of leads on to sub-package 4, which was bringing the living labs, the partners running living labs, bringing them and the professionals, the people, the stakeholders interested in it together for our sort of site visits to the living labs themselves. And finally, work package 5 was the development of a supportive regulatory framework for IMTA, and this was utilising data that was collected in work package 6 for the idea of creating briefing documents for regulatory and government bodies within each country. I'll just discuss quickly, go through each particular section and just sort of talk a little bit more about it. Kind of touched on each of them briefly. Sub-package 1 obviously was developing this IMTA community in conjunction with the project coordinator CTAQUA. We developed a social media program initially that looked at running a Twitter feed as well as a LinkedIn network. It was decided fairly early on in the project that it'd be better for the project coordinator for CTAQUA to focus on the project Twitter output, and we would focus on the LinkedIn portal. So that was created back in late 2017 rather. It's currently got 120 members, and it's a fairly regular posting of material onto that, and that can be found on LinkedIn by looking at Integrate IMTA, and you can join that fairly easily. In terms of student knowledge transfer, like I say, we wanted to create a series of teaching materials in as wide a variety of formats as possible, that would provide an interesting background for anybody coming to IMTA for the first time or looking for some more detailed information. This has progressed fairly well. There's already material, quite a lot of material on the Integrate website. The key point of this is it's free to access, free to download, free to use. We use it, for instance, at SAMS and some of our teaching activities already. And as I mentioned already, it's presented in a mixture of formats as face-to-face interviews with partners and other stakeholders, fact sheets about some of the key species involved in the work that we've done, and presentations and lectures as well. And of course that material will remain, although we're at the project end just now, that material will still remain available after the project close. So to give you a quick idea there, I just mentioned some examples. We have interviews, lectures, presentations, very good introductory lecture from us, Adam Hughes at SAMS, introducing you to the concept of IMTA, fact sheets on the species as well there. So moving on to the thematic workshops and the living lab visits. Like I mentioned, the idea of the thematic workshops was to try and get in each individual country interested stakeholders to come together with the project partners and have a kind of open forum about where IMTA can assist the industry with new technology, new ideas, new thoughts about reducing their environmental impact and adopting eco-efficient technologies. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, the idea of a whole zero waste economy idea, of which IMTA is a key part. I think we had a fairly interesting series of workshops with some very different formats in each country. For example, at SAMS, we had a series of round-robin workshops where we had over 90 delegates at SAMS back in February. France, Agrocampus and Seva held a 2-day workshop with over 140 participants, lots of breakout sessions looking at different concepts of IMTA, looking at hydroponics and closed systems and open water systems. In Portugal, as an example, it held in conjunction with Portuguese aquaculture producers. There's over 80 participants. They are learning about integrating IMTA with a round table discussion afterwards as well. As this ties in to the living lab visits, which every partner holding a living lab carried out. And again, the idea of this was very much to encourage people within industry, academics, professionals to come and visit the living labs, discuss the concept, and a sort of information exchange to occur, because there's nothing like actually talking about IMTA on the site of something practical or of an experiment actually running. And again, as an example, NUI National University Galway demonstrated their IMTA recirculation systems at Carna, which included a question and answer session on the systems and IMTA in general. Alga Plus held an open day at the facility, inviting relevant stakeholders in Portugal to come and see what they do. And CTAQUA in Spain held a similar event where they also had the media there as well, the local and national media, to try and garner as much publicity for the project and IMTA as possible. So that brings me on to the final sub-action, sub-action 5, which was developing supportive regulatory framework for IMTA. This action was based a lot on the work that Pierre and Marie had carried out in work package 6 in looking at SWOT analysis of a lot of the regulatory issues that affected IMTA in various countries, which fed back from data that each of the partners had got early on in the project by speaking to producers and people on the ground, the obstacles that they were coming across when they were trying to set up and run IMTA systems. I then took this data that's already been taken and worked it into a 2-page policy document that was prepared for each country, which partners could then take out and present to government and regulatory bodies within their country to present a position where IMTA is and some ideas for what could be done to help IMTA in a regulatory sense in the future. This fell right towards the end of the project, and of course, due to the COVID-19 situation, we had to adapt this slightly, where we held a series of virtual and telephone meetings with the relevant stakeholders as well, which has worked very well. And we've had some very interesting information back from that, which we're just working through at the moment as the final deliverable from this from work package 3. So that kind of brings me to an end of with the work from work package 3. It obviously goes without saying, just say thank you to all the partners for the work they've done in organising all the series of events. And I think we've had a lot of quite interesting dissemination. We've had really interesting feedback, which is held within the deliverables to each of these sub-packages, if you're interested in more of the information. And again, been largely positive and some very interesting neutral feedback as well about where IMTA can go into the future. So as I said, there's too much really to discuss from that in depth here at the moment, but that will all be presented within the deliverables of Work Package 3. So thank you very much.
Now we're going to, for defining the framework for IMTA development, we're going to France again. The presentation is in French, but it is subtitled in the as a text underneath the image.
Bonjour. Une partie du projet Integrate était consacrée à la définition d'un cadre pour le développement de la MTI en proposant un plan d'action pour l'arc atlantique. Le travail a donc consisté à d'abord dresser un bilan de la MTI, puis ensuite de proposer des préconisations pour créer un contexte favorable à son développement. La première étape de ce travail a été d'identifier les sites d'AMTI déjà en place. Pour ça, un travail d'enquête a été réalisé auprès des producteurs, administrations, instituts techniques, centres de recherche et de formation et autres acteurs en lien avec le secteur. Nous avons également recueilli de nombreuses informations pendant les ateliers de travail, tables rondes organisées durant le projet, et toutes ces informations ont été complétées par de la littérature et par une analyse réglementaire. Le travail a été conduit dans chacun des pays et mis en commun. L'analyse a fait émerger les principales barrières et leviers au développement du secteur. À la suite de ce premier travail, des sites AMTI les plus aboutis ont été analysés sous forme de cas d'étude. À partir de ces résultats, un diagnostic du secteur a été réalisé en prenant en compte les aspects techniques, sociaux, environnementaux, économiques et réglementaires. Ce diagnostic a servi de base à la rédaction de recommandations. Ensuite, ces différentes propositions ont fait l'objet d'une consultation par de multiples acteurs du secteur de l'aquaculture. Ainsi, les recommandations proposées par la suite souhaitent prendre en compte leurs préoccupations et leurs attentes en ce qui concerne le développement de la MTI. Les diapositives suivantes décriront donc brièvement les principales recommandations issues de ces travaux. Pour cette présentation, nous avons choisi de les présenter en fonction des problèmes rencontrés par les producteurs. La première difficulté porte sur l'obtention des sites aquacoles, même s'il n'y a pas d'obstacle majeur à la mise en place de systèmes de production multi-espèces. La première raison évoquée par les professionnels est le processus d'obtention des licences, qui peut s'avérer très long et très complexe. La seconde raison est la difficulté d'accès à l'espace, que ce soit à terre ou en mer, du fait de la concurrence avec d'autres activités. Pour répondre à ces difficultés, 3 recommandations ont été retenues. La première, faire évoluer les procédures administratives pour l'obtention des autorisations de production. Même s'il est vrai que les demandes de diversification sont aujourd'hui bien prises en compte et traitées plus rapidement, il reste urgent de faciliter la mise en place d'expérimentations ou de diversification sur les concessions de certains professionnels. Un retour plus rapide des services instructeurs est également nécessaire pour que les porteurs de projets puissent comprendre les motifs de refus et améliorer leur dossier. La seconde porte sur synthétiser les documents de planification et les textes relatifs à la protection de l'environnement. L'obtention de concessions pour la production de plusieurs espèces est particulièrement complexe. Bien qu'aucune réglementation en vigueur n'interdise la culture de plusieurs espèces sur un même espace, le cumul des réglementations spécifiques à chaque espèce restreignent de manière significative les possibilités géographiques d'installation. Et enfin, standardiser les études environnementales pour homogénéiser l'instruction des dossiers. Proposer un modèle pour une étude d'impact pourrait par exemple permettre d'homogénéiser les décisions. Toutefois, une homogénéisation des études environnementales est aussi souhaitée pour les porteurs de projets plus modestes afin de consolider leur dossier et faire face à tout recours au tribunal. Le problème d'acceptabilité sociale et le développement territorial a souvent été mentionné par les acteurs durant le projet. Certains projets sont aujourd'hui freinés, voire stoppés suite à des procédures judiciaires liées à des questions environnementales. L'aquaculture souffre aussi d'une faible acceptabilité sociale. Ici encore, 3 recommandations ressortent de ce projet. La première, mettre en place des outils de concertation pour intégrer les projets dans le développement territorial local. L'idée est de s'appuyer sur un outil de concertation qui réunirait tous les acteurs locaux. Bon nombre d'entre eux ne se sentent pas assez impliqués dans le processus de décision concernant le développement de certains secteurs, notamment celui de l'aquaculture, qui a de nombreuses interactions avec l'environnement et les autres usages de l'espace maritime. Le second, communiquer sur le service écosystémique rendu par la MTI. La MTI et de façon plus générale l'aquaculture peut participer au développement territorial des littoraux, que ce soit sur le domaine maritime ou à terre. Elle constitue une partie de l'activité économique de nombreuses localités et participe au maintien, à la structuration et au développement d'un tissu de services pour la population locale. Une communication axée sur ces aspects permettrait une prise de conscience de l'importance de ces activités pour des milieux ruraux littoraux. Et le troisième, faire connaître les principes de la MTI et les pratiques aquacoles. 2 cibles sont identifiées pour cette préconisation. D'une part, le secteur professionnel, incluant exploitants, financeurs et décideurs, et d'autre part, le public et les consommateurs. L'objectif est dans un premier temps de faire émerger ces pratiques et de leur donner de la visibilité. En ce qui concerne les consommateurs et le grand public, il est impératif de donner une information simple et crédible concernant ces systèmes afin de les rassurer sur la qualité des produits. Une autre difficulté mentionnée porte sur le manque de connaissances. En effet, ce manque de connaissances concernant le fonctionnement des systèmes en AMTI ne permet pas aujourd'hui de proposer des modèles robustes et viables économiquement à tous les aquaculteurs. Les systèmes AMTI ne conviennent pas à l'échelle de production ou aux équipements de l'aquaculture actuelle. De nouveaux systèmes AMTI doivent encore être conçus pour que le secteur puisse mettre en œuvre ces pratiques. Il n'existe aujourd'hui que peu de modèles d'AMTI fiables dont les bénéfices environnementaux ont été démontrés. Beaucoup de questions restent donc encore en suspens. Ici encore, nous proposons 3 recommandations. La première, accroître la recherche sur les interactions au sein du système et avec l'environnement. Les connaissances sur le fonctionnement des systèmes AMTI sont encore trop partielles. La recherche sur les interactions doit avant tout permettre de mieux comprendre les échanges entre les différents compartiments d'un système en AMTI. Elle doit aussi amener à étudier leur intérêt en termes de durabilité environnementale. La seconde, améliorer la collaboration entre scientifiques et professionnels de la filière aquacole. Les connaissances sur le fonctionnement des systèmes AMTI sont encore trop partielles. La recherche sur les interactions doit avant tout permettre de mieux comprendre les échanges entre les différents compartiments d'un système. Elle doit aussi amener à étudier leur intérêt en termes de durabilité environnementale. Et la troisième, sensibiliser et développer la formation pour accélérer l'innovation et le développement de nouveaux systèmes d'AMTI. Cette recommandation concerne notamment la sensibilisation des nouvelles générations d'aquaculteurs. Faire connaître les pratiques d'AMTI lors des formations aquacoles permettrait de favoriser les initiatives expérimentales, que ce soit dans les centres de formation et chez les jeunes exploitants. Par ailleurs, la maîtrise des systèmes d'AMTI est perçue comme complexe par les producteurs. Ce frein pourrait être levé grâce à la formation de producteurs capables de comprendre le fonctionnement de ces systèmes et de les maîtriser. Et la dernière partie porte sur les aspects économiques qui sont aussi source d'incertitudes. Les systèmes actuels arrivent à peine à l'échelle commerciale et il n'y a que peu de preuves de leur durabilité économique. La main-d'œuvre et les investissements supplémentaires doivent être pris en compte, ainsi que les études de marché pour les productions supplémentaires. La MTI souffre d'un manque de visibilité et des préoccupations émergent sur la manière dont ces produits pourraient être perçus par les consommateurs potentiels. Les citoyens pourraient ne pas comprendre le terme ou pire encore se méfier de ces pratiques de production. Voici 3 recommandations pour pallier ces difficultés. La première, trouver des solutions de diversification pour les professionnels en assurant la conversion des systèmes aquacoles actuels. Chaque pays possède ses propres particularités en termes de systèmes aquacoles et les modèles théoriques en AMTI, poissons, mollusques, algues, ne sont pas communément adaptés à ces réalités. Il apparaît nécessaire de travailler à une évolution des systèmes de monoculture existants vers des systèmes d'AMTI, mais qui correspondent au contexte aquacole propre à chaque pays, plutôt que de chercher à implanter des systèmes génériques. La seconde, trouver de nouvelles espèces adaptées aux enjeux économiques et environnementaux. Les systèmes d'AMTI développés jusqu'à aujourd'hui ne répondent qu'en partie à certaines problématiques environnementales de l'aquaculture. La rentabilité des systèmes est un autre point crucial pour penser correctement le développement de nouvelles AMTI. Une étude de marché pour les espèces identifiées est donc également nécessaire et devra particulièrement veiller à analyser correctement les possibilités de commercialisation. Et la dernière, donner de la visibilité aux produits pour permettre une différenciation de la MTI. Il s'agit ici d'anticiper une véritable stratégie de commercialisation des produits. Le grand public n'a que très peu de connaissances concernant ce type d'aquaculture. De par sa complexité, la MTI pourrait véhiculer de la méfiance si une communication adaptée n'accompagne pas son développement. Comme vous l'avez vu, beaucoup de ces préconisations ne sont pas spécifiques à la MTI, mais bien générales à l'ensemble des productions aquacoles. Ces résultats soulignent que l'intérêt environnemental potentiel que l'on attribue à ces pratiques ne facilite pas toujours le développement de ces systèmes et la concrétisation des projets. De nos travaux, on peut dégager 3 axes de travail. Le premier, soutenir la recherche et le développement nécessaires à la MTI. Le secteur de la MTI doit passer par une étape de recherche et de développement afin de prouver l'intérêt environnemental de certaines associations d'espèces, notamment en milieu ouvert. De nouveaux modèles en AMTI, robustes et adaptés aux contextes locaux, doivent être créés et testés afin d'apporter des preuves fiables de leur intérêt économique et environnemental. Le second, accompagner les projets en amont. L'accessibilité à de nouveaux sites de production et les interactions avec les autres activités présentes sur le littoral constituent 2 enjeux majeurs. Un travail doit être mené pour faciliter l'accès aux sites de production ainsi que les démarches de diversification pour les producteurs déjà installés. L'accompagnement des porteurs de projets est également primordial. Et enfin le dernier, rendre visible la MTI. Le secteur de la MTI souffre aujourd'hui d'un manque de visibilité et sa compréhension ne doit plus être réservée à une poignée d'experts. Des outils de concertation doivent être mis en place afin de mieux intégrer les projets dans le contexte territorial local. Et la communication concernant les enjeux de l'aquaculture devrait favoriser l'implantation de nouveaux sites aquacoles. Merci pour votre attention. Nous tenons également à remercier tous les acteurs rencontrés durant le projet pour leur aide et leur coopération. Nous vous invitons à aller sur le site internet du projet qui s'affiche à l'écran pour avoir accès aux différents livrables et pour en découvrir encore plus. Je laisse maintenant la parole à Marta.
Okay, so I just want to say thanks to all the partners of the Integrate project and also external experts for their presentations and contributions. I think we had a very interesting set of topics and insights. And before we end the webinar, I'd like to do just a brief wrap up with some main conclusions and next steps. So I think it's clear that we've seen that IMTA is a feasible option for the future of Atlantic area aquaculture. Experiences from our pilot actions do show that species tested are good candidates with high economic value and market interest as human food, for example. And we saw in one of the pilot actions that, for example, through natural recruitment and or selection of species adapted to the local environment, producers have a lower initial investment and simple and efficient harvesting techniques can help launch the activities without major restructuring of companies and lower staff input. And we've seen that there is growing interest from the industry to diversify their production for different reasons, including reducing risk through diversification, increased environmental benefits, as well as non-productive activities such as tourism. So in addition, there is a growing market for sustainable products among European consumers, as well as national and European environmental legislation. Next steps in this regard for us would be to test successful species in other locations and upscale the systems that we've tested. So with the consensus of an IMTA definition, as well as the development of technical manuals and implementation guides targeting producers in particular, we can help in harmonizing approaches and implementation techniques for the purpose of comparison and reproducibility across countries in order to guarantee successful upscaling. In order for us to continue contributing towards this harmonization, the next immediate step in this regard for the Integrate project is to finalize the technical standard that was mentioned previously, which will be exacting and layered to accompany the definition, and with the ultimate goal of achieving an IMTA specific label or certification in the future. And a continued European and international collaboration is essential in order to further harmonize these approaches and profit from experiences gathered. We've seen, for example, in the Integrate project that our objectives were based on previous experience and knowledge, and we have brought that a step further by building on previous experiences from international IMTA community. So by developing policy briefings at national level and discussing these with policymakers in the 5 Atlantic countries, we can anchor the institutional interest in IMTA with the ultimate goal of incorporating it in an appropriate regulatory framework at European level. And although it was not within the scope of the Integrate project to achieve an IMTA-specific label or certification, if and when this time comes, there are tools to adapt the existing regulation and incorporate IMTA into frameworks. So for example, above the national regulations sits the marine spatial planning ecosystem-based management approach, and it would be possible to introduce IMTA at this level. The reevaluation cycles for the EU legislation, for example, the Water Framework Directive, are reviewed every 6 years, so it may be possible to incorporate IMTA by coordinating the timing of these. There was a general consensus throughout our project that whichever regulatory framework is adapted to include IMTA, it should specifically acknowledge IMTA in order to support its targeted development. And underneath the broader regulatory framework within which IMTA would eventually sit, new and specific legislation would also be appropriate, as for example, fish and invertebrate industries currently conform to different regulatory standards. So incorporation of IMTA in a regulatory framework would greatly facilitate the support needed by the industry in its transition towards IMTA in the Atlantic area and beyond. So thank you very much. And now we'll have our final Q&A session before ending the webinar.
One question from John Bolton, forwarded by email from the John Bolton University of Cape Town. I think this is for Bertrand and Jessica basically to answer. He's commenting that around the world there are examples of commercially successful aquaculture systems involving 2 components, but at different trophic levels. And he is wondering whether this still falls under the definition of IMTA. So I think Bertrand, you want to answer this?
Yeah, the question from Professor Bolton is one main question we always discussed during all the life of the project, and it was also one main topic of the workshop, international workshop we organized in Porto in order to find the consensus and find a proposal for a definition. And yes, about the first part of the question about the commercial successful IMTA system in Europe, it's still under process, and no real IMTA system with a commercial success is running. While in South Africa or in Australia, there are different systems. The other point about the number of components to talk about IMTA, Mr. Bolton asked the question of do only 2 components are enough to talk about IMTA, and from the definition Jessica proposed, yes, we can answer yes, that at least two components are enough. We only must be sure that there are nutrient flow between those two components. And the question of harvesting partially or totally harvest of the biomass is also another point to attest.
The question is the IMTA practice could be recognized in the specification of a biological label, since it is a durable, since it is a sustainable aquaculture practice. Emilia, do you want to comment on that? We did some work on labeling, but not too much, as the project would not go that far. So Emilia, if you want to comment on that shortly.
Really, I'm not an expert on labeling, but from listening to the experts, what I know until now is that the system in itself, it's not labeled as cannot be labeled, but the products that come from them, yes. So until now, what they do is we can label the products that come from IMTA, not the system. Okay, I don't know if you understand, if I make myself understood, but the idea is you can label CBAS from IMTA, not the IMTA.
Okay, I think that's clear again, Emilia. Yeah, so it's the products themselves can get an organic label, but not the system as a whole. Yes. Yes. There's definitely more work to be done. So another question that came in, I don't know who asked, but it's for Adam and Lars. So it will basically be Lars, I think, that's present. How can we publicize the benefits of IMTA to a wider audience outside of the aquaculture industry? Are there ideas on that? Lars, have you ideas on that?
I think we're making of it. I think projects like Integrate and also to bring in other projects like Impact and things as well, I think are doing a very good job of publicising what IMTA is. I think it's a question within the industry. I think IMTA is very reasonably well understood. It's trying to expand that primarily within the industry, but then how do we take that to the public? And I think there's been some work in the past that has shown that the public are very receptive to the idea and the principle of IMTA. So it is an open question, yes. Well, it's how we go about doing that, and I'm not sure I have a definitive answer as to how that would happen. But there's possibility of some quite interesting marketing, some explanation to describe the processes that are involved in IMTA if we're taking it just purely from stakeholders to the public as well. So I think it's possibly something that could be looked at in the next stages of IMTA study. I think it would form a very interesting study as further information about how the public perceive IMTA and how the concept as a product could be sold to them as well.
Can I just add something to that as well, Lars? Mm-hmm. I think also in terms of, for example, the training courses that we've developed within Work Package 3, that the idea was also to use these courses at universities for future professionals, for example, in the sector of aquaculture. And these could also be used for other degree courses or other students from more environmental degrees or ecological degrees, ecosystem processes, and that kind of thing. So that could also be an approach, not just awareness raising and communication, but also really adapting the training courses, for example, to other sectors. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I have any more. Yes, Damien, if you want to make a comment, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just on maybe the target audience for IMTA, and I'm not convinced that it should really be the public. I think where IMTA can make big strides is in enabling the industry in terms of licensing. And I think the public would automatically assume that aquaculture should meet environmental legislation. And I think that's where the big stumbling block is at the moment within the industry across Europe, and IMTA addresses a lot of those issues. And I would be more keen to see projects like Impact or Integrate really enabling the policymakers within the different countries to issue multi-species licenses, which would then enable expansion of the aquaculture sector. And I think that would be a much more important result than spending a lot of money and effort trying to educate the public specifically on IMTA. But it's just an opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, on the part of legislation, we have been looking a little bit into that as well. There's a lot of differences between countries. Some countries permit multiple species cultivation, some countries don't. Even within countries, there are many differences. So legislation is a whole different area, which should definitely, of course, be synchronized to allow for IMTA development. So I don't think we have more now. I'm going to give the word to Martha again. Yes.
I just got a comment from Dror Angel from Israel. He says that it's not a question, it's more a comment about the educating the public. He says that as they showed in the iDream project, beyond educating the public on IMTA, we still have a challenge of educating the public on aquaculture per se. So I think that's also an important point that he raises, that it's not, we need to start with the social acceptability of aquaculture products in general as well, starting from a different level. So that's also an important aspect to keep in mind. So I think with that, we're ready to wrap up this webinar. And I would really like to thank everyone from the presenters to our invited experts and all of you attending today. Thank you very much for your participation, for the interesting questions, for the exchange with the presenters. And I just want to let you all know that the full recording of this webinar will be available on our Integrate project website within the next couple of weeks and on the YouTube channel. So you can revisit the webinar, or if you missed some parts, that will be freely available for you to view. And if you have any further questions, just email them to integrate@ctaqua.es, so the email address that you received the invitations from, and I can distribute your questions to the relevant partner or external expert. And so any comments and questions are still welcome after the webinar finishes. So thank you again, and have a nice rest of your day, wherever you are. And thank you for attending.
Okay, I would like to join to that. Thank you very much. With this event, we have come to the end, because it's the last public event of a 3-year project, and it has been a very nice ride from the beginning. We have learned a lot. I think we have achieved quite some things on many areas, both technical and in other areas as well, like education and publicity. So yes, we learned a lot. We achieved quite some things, and we hope we can continue to take on with IMTA in a further stage. So thank you very much, and hope to see you again in the future, maybe on a live event and in the flesh.